What is the secret to businesses that last throughout the years? Today, I bring a hot take. I think that innovation is overrated. We live in a world that's too obsessed with the newest, brightest, shiniest thing. But at the end of the day, there are things, there are principles for what actually works. And this is why I will bring the core of the object here, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs is actually the blueprint for business success. And what do I mean with this? You've probably heard of Maslow's hierarchy. It's a pyramid shaped with 5 tiers. So the first tier, the base of the pyramid, we have our animal needs. We have food, we have shelter, going to the bathroom, reproduction. Then as you rise among tiers, you have our social needs. We have safety and shelter. Then we go on to our needs within our group, within our tribe, within our society, within our families, within any groups that we are in. So being respected by the group, feeling that we are a valuable part of that group, and having that feedback from them. And then we rise until the last echelons, which are the tiers in which we look for our self-respect, our self-actualization. That would be what many people on the internet say being the highest version or the best version of yourself. And self-actualization is something that, in all realness, few people ever get to. In all realness, most people throughout human history never got there. And I hope that more people will get there in the future. And this is one of my pet peeves, one of the things that correlate with my purpose. But back to business. When you think of a business that lasts, when you think of a business that's subject to the Lindy effect, so a business that has been around for decades or even centuries, what do you think? Think for a moment. You probably think, for instance, of a Macy's in New York. That's the largest store in the world and has been for maybe 100 years now, or even more than that. Or you think of one of those famous restaurants. You probably have one in your city or town that's decades old or even centuries old, depending on where you live. And there are even some groups that have been together for thousands of years. For instance, the Catholic Church, although they have had their own disputes and schisms, but they have uninterrupted work for almost 2,000 years now. And what's the secret to this? The secret to these businesses is that they know some fundamental truths of human needs, fundamental truths of what people actually want, what people actually need. And they're very good at those little things that they do. So for instance, that old restaurant, that mom and pop shop that's been open for decades now, they really know their customers and they really know how to dial in to their needs. And of course they do innovate along through time, but it's not an obsession for them. It's not something like we see in technology, for instance, where people tend to obsess with shiny objects all the time. Those businesses, they dial into one thing or a few things, and they do those things very well. So for instance, I was reading a post by a friend of mine who has featured in the podcast, and you should definitely watch it because it's a very interesting episode. Diana Lenkova, she is the Cynical CEO, and she was talking about the difference between TikTok and Instagram, for instance, and what made TikTok resonate so much more with people than Instagram did. And basically, it comes down to that on Instagram, people tended to try to show their perfect versions. They're picture perfect, everything is always a highlight reel, you always use Photoshop, you use filters, you need to show things as if you were perfect, if you lived the perfect life that not even celebrities live. And then TikTok, on the other hand, brought something much more real, much more raw, and people could resonate more with the creators on TikTok because they were speaking their souls into the platform differently than what people do on Instagram. And hopefully this is what I'm doing to you right now, because I am being genuine and speaking my soul into this. So when you think of writing, for instance, what's the big thing about writing? Writing is about conveying emotion, is about conveying ideas, it's about transmitting to the other person, your reader, an emotion or an idea or a concept or something that will make that person think a bit differently afterwards or feel a bit differently, something that might change inside the person. It's about storytelling, and storytelling is the fundamental way that we as humans spread messages, because for centuries, for actually millennia, we didn't even have writing before. So we told stories. We literally told stories. And that's also something very powerful about music as well, because through music, you can tell a story. And with rhyming and with the cadence and with the musical notes, you can put it in a way that's much easier to remember and that people will know by heart years and years after they've last heard the song. At least that works for me. And as some of you guys know, I am a musicist, a musician. I play the guitar, I play a bit of piano, I sing, and at least for me it works really well. There are songs that I haven't played for years, but if I get the guitar and I start trying to mimic it, it suddenly comes back to my mind and I can play it again. So writing is about storytelling, it's about conveying emotion. So in Maslow's hierarchy, it would be around the third tier, the tier that's more in tune with the social aspect of resonating with other people. You can also think about things that are on lower tiers. For instance, food. Food can be something that's very basic. It can be thought of as something that's really, basically food is energy. It's maintenance of the body so that we can live another day. But we live in a world of instant gratification in which people many times just think about ordering food on DoorDash or whatever delivery app is available in your region. And think about it, is that soulless cardboard box with not so healthy food that wasn't made with love, that was made by a 16-year-old that didn't really care about you, and with ingredients that aren't really that good, Is that the same as a home cooked meal made by your mom or your grandma? Of course not. It's not the same because it doesn't have any attention. It doesn't have, I used to think that when people said that making things with love, it was something kind of esoterical, and in a way it is. But it's also about that attention to detail, that care, that you can feel it when you eat something or when you use that jacket that was knit by your grandma. It's different than if you bought something at H&M or whatever large fast fashion store you're buying things at. But anyways, going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is the secret to businesses that last. It's thinking about the fundamental truths, the things that won't change. And there's a very interesting book about this by Morgan Housel. So Morgan Housel is the same guy that wrote the book The Psychology of Money, which is also a book that I recommend because it's really interesting, his takes, and it's definitely not something that tries to be technical about things, about money, about finance. And even though I like technical stuff, I know that many people don't, and they don't resonate with that. And Morgan, he has a way of putting things into words and breaking down complex ideas into simpler terms. So I totally recommend his book. But the book I'm talking about now is The Same as Ever. So it's his latest book. And the basic gist of that book is that we tend to think of the future when we're planning for our lives, when we're planning for business, when we're trying to forecast how will the world be in 2030 or 2050 or 2 months from now. And we usually focus on what will be different. And it's probably natural that we think about what will be different when we try to forecast. But actually, most things, or at least many things, will be the same. So that's why he titled the book The Same as Ever. So we need to think about the things that will be the same. And that's where Maslow comes around. This is us going full circle. Think about things that will stay true, that will stay fundamental, things that are evergreen. Because those are the things that you will be able to monetize on the long run. Those are the things that you will be able to help people with for years to come. And those are the things that you may put up some upfront work right now, but that work will pay off because it will be used and will be valuable to people for a long time. And that's what he talks about on Same as Ever, is trying to think of things that will keep true irrespective of what changes, irrespective of how AI shapes the world in the future. About things that will age well, or as a fine wine, since I'm here in Argentina right now and they love wine. So think about this. Think about how Maslow and his hierarchy of needs can be used as a blueprint for long-term, lasting, evergreen success in any endeavor that you put yourself into. Not necessarily just business, but anything that you want to do in your life, that you want to have value on the long run. Think about Maslow and his hierarchy, because those things that will never change are the things that are fundamental human truths, that are things that we will always crave. We will always crave connection. We will always crave good food. We will always need shelter. We will always need to feel like we are part of a group, that we are loved. So think about those things and how you can help people with those things. And you'll be able to outlast your competitors that only want to think about the harder, better, faster, stronger, the new shiny object, the new bells and whistles. Think about the fundamentals and you will beat them in the long run. Rest assured. Keep rocking, keep rolling, follow the rock and roll to success, and send this to your friend who has shiny object syndrome.